If you really want to get raw on Monday nights, tune into the Beyond Ringside Radio Network at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 Central Time for the Midnight Black Mass Podcast. Myself, the Rev Dan the Dragon Wilson, along with the Strong Style Psycho Tank and Andrew Alexander, bring you a truly blood-curdling experience. Uncensored, uncut, and only on the Beyond Ringside Radio Network.
Forget all you know about podcasts. We welcome you to an experience uniquely different. Please join us for our coverage of all entertainment on the fringe of society. The candles are lit, the lights are down low. It is now time to welcome our host as he steps up to the pulpit. The sacrifice has been prepared for the midnight Black Mass.
Ghastly greetings, groovy ghoulies, and happy holidays to ya. It is I, your host, the maniacal minister of the occult, the devil you know, the Reverend Dan the Dragon Wilson, for another edition of the Midnight Black Mass. My normal co-conspirators are not with us tonight. Tank is in similar boat that I am, actually. The allergies and the colds and the flus and the bugs and what have you around this part of the country lately have been really bad, especially if you got kids in the public school system. One of the most horrifying things of all. I kid, they do a good job. But because of that exposure to many different children and many different illnesses, it seems like we've all been sick from the time that the weather got cold in mid-November, and it really hasn't stopped. I had like a week after my birthday, after I got over a giant week of being sick, that I felt a little better. And I actually feel fine now. It's just congestion. And Tank's also having some cold-related issues and has lost his voice yet again, so he won't be here. And Andrew Alexander just said he couldn't make it, and I've learned after a while you just don't ask too many questions when it comes to Andrew and what he's doing in his spare time, so we'll leave it at that. But I'm very happy to welcome the co-host tonight, the founder of Beyond Ringside Radio, of course, the one and only Magic City Motor Mouth, Fast Eddie Layne. What's up, my man?
It is always an honor and a privilege to be a part of the Midnight Black Mass. This is one of the few times you and I have actually spoke since the Scenic City thing, and I said this behind the scenes, and I will say it in public all over again. I had an absolute blast being able to call the action alongside of you. It was a treat, and then some.
Man, I really enjoyed working with you, and I don't want to use this as an opportunity to defecate on the young announcers in the business today, but you're a professional, and I don't mean that as a slight against those guys, but it seems, with the openness of wrestling to the fan community, and in many ways it's a good thing, but it also, allows just guys, for example, who host a podcast as their really only wrestling experience to then go become wrestling announcers. And there's an art to that, and it's not just up to the wrestling part of it, but just the broadcasting part of it, which I had no clue of when I got in the business. If it wasn't for guys like Stephen Prazak and Scott Hudson, I'd have never learned that side of it. Steve Martin was another guy that was really helpful. Those guys are professional announcers, and you have that experience as well as being a professional, both, not just in wrestling, but you've done announcing, DJing, radio hosting for years upon years. So just to have that timing and that professionalism, and then also you add your knowledge of wrestling, I thought it was a great combination, and I'd hop in the booth with you again anytime, and hopefully when I'm feeling a little bit better, because that was a real bummer. You saw me over there struggling to get through the show with a pile of hankies on a giant bottle of Gatorade.
Well, I've told this story to a few people, and I've never said it really on air. And the first break, folks, everybody knows if you're behind a microphone, that first break is always the most crucial, because that gives you a chance to just punch out there and lay down the groundwork. It's like, all right, we're going to cut loose, cut up, and have fun tonight. As the Reverend throws to me for that first shot on the microphone, I was battling the hiccups. And as I got ready to open my mouth, just as my lips are starting to part, and that sounds like a porn I'm ready to read, but it's not, I swear to God. As I'm just getting ready to speak, all of a sudden, oh, shit, no. So I just zipped my lips for a second, and God bless the Rev, I didn't have a chance to just mouth the word hiccups. He just gives me this look like, dude, where are you? I said, give me 1 second. So 2 hiccups after that, he throws back to me. Here we go.
It's the way it goes sometimes, man. You know.
Well, I mean,
when you're leaving live to tape, you're still live.
Yeah, I know it. It's all live somewhere down the road, and I feel your pain as far as, you know. And this is something that I tell everybody: when you have that opportunity, this is the one thing that you always remember. It doesn't matter if you're working for a localized company or a national company. It's when you get behind the microphone, it's never about you. That's the way that I approach it. It's never about me. I'm in there to put over the show. I'm in there to build up the talent in the ring. And that's one of the reasons why you and I work so well together, is because you and I both understand that it's like we're there to help put over the event. And a lot of kids, and I mean kids too, I'll say the same thing, and I don't mean to, like I said, I won't go poop on all of them, but there's a few that they feel that it's their opportunity to get themselves over. What these kids need to realize, and yeah, I'm going to sound like that guy for a second. When you do your best to put over the talent and put over the event and put over the company, guess what? You get over. It ain't about putting yourself over. When you do your job right, you get over. Correct, sir?
It's the only job you have. It's the only way you can get over as an announcer, is to put other people over, because it's why you're there. Nobody's buying a ticket to see you. Most indie fans, from what I hear, turn off commentary because most of the announcers are so bad. So, you know, if a fan tells me they specifically will listen to a show that I'm on because they appreciate that we take the subject matter seriously, we respect the material, then I appreciate that. That's a huge compliment, probably one of the biggest you could give me in this day and age, when the value of an announcer seems to be less than ever, at least in terms of perception, not necessarily in terms of reality.
You mentioned some of your influences in the early days, and I have to give, I'm very quick to give credit also. When I was first starting to do television here in Birmingham for All Pro Wrestling, the Milliken family promotion, Bob Milliken, owner, Don and Dave, the sons, and I was working directly with them, and they brought in a gentleman by the name of Jerry Binkley, who was the PD program director at a local station called WSMQ. Jerry had worked with the Milliken family for years. So when we were introduced, and I introduced myself, told him, you know, I'm still relatively young in the industry at this point in time, which is true. And it's like, I want to find out how you do things. I want to find out what they want. Tell me how they want it done and how you want it done, and I'll follow suit. And he's the primary babyface announcer, and I'm going to be the heel because I'm already a heel manager. And he said, you know something, you just won the battle right there. You're asking questions. It's like, well, I don't know the answers, therefore I'm going to ask. I'm never going to assume. And we had a lot of fun doing that program. Ran it for about 3 years on Birmingham Cable originally, and then moved off. It was shot through Birmingham Cable at that time. Like I said, I'm talking mid to late 80s. And then we moved it into a mainstream broadcast realm. But yeah, little by little, it's because I had the right people around me. And I guess that's one of the problems nowadays, because I mean, I'm once again don't want to sound like that guy, but it's like it always has something to do with who's training somebody. I mean, your resume speaks for itself, and I continue to try to build mine. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. God knows I screw up every once in a while, but I just try to have fun with what I do. And I try to keep that fun infectious because I mean, like I said, I had a blast because you and I were able to play off of each other extraordinarily well.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I'd like to work with you again. You know, I feel like we had good chemistry, and we're just kind of getting warmed up there by the end of it. You know, you kind of have to feel out a new broadcast partner's rhythm and timing, and that's and that's another thing. That's if they know what they're doing. You know, I've been put in some booths with guys who were really good. You know, that hadn't really had any experience. I did. I'll go ahead and put them over. GWP. Georgia, or GPW, Georgia Premier Wrestling.
Right.
I commentated a show where they had Jeff Hardy and Caleb Conley in the main event, and it's actually available on Powerbomb TV if you want to go over there and check it out. But the Mark Out Loud podcast, I believe it was, where the two guys that they had brought in as announcers came from that I worked in the booth with. And, you know, those guys, they took the material seriously. They had pretty decent timing. Like, I really, you know, I appreciated them. So, you know, it's certainly not all bad. But it's nice to have that professionalism. Like I said, if you treat the material with the respect it deserves, then it makes our jobs easier. Like I said, that you have to feel out somebody's timing that you're working with if they're a professional. If they don't know what they're doing, that piece of it alone can be a train wreck.
Amen. Plain and simple. Amen, my brother.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, so this weekend we're supposed to have an Anarchy show, big Powerbomb TV taping at the Landmark Arena on December the 9th. But Mother Nature had other plans as North Georgia fell victim to a little bit of a mini blizzard, kind of a rare occurrence for them to see some snow and some Christmas lights at the same time, but they did. And Cornelia itself was under about 6 inches during the day on Saturday, given all of the talent that has to travel from out of state, the fans, many of whom drive long distances to come see Anarchy. We just felt in the interest of everybody's safety, it was best to call off the event. And we'll be back for Christmas Chaos on December 22nd and 23rd. Big two-night event sponsored by NCW and Anarchy Wrestling. It's a co-promoted event. Friday night will feature mainly NCW matches and events, and Saturday will be the Anarchy portion. However, there will be some mixing and matching. So you might see an NCW match or two on Saturday. You might see an Anarchy match or two on Friday. So, you know, going to be really the first synergetic co-promotional thing that NCW and Anarchy have done together. We know about the huge matchup. It's been signed, been out, it's been all over the internet. Over 10,000 views on Twitter. Gunnar Miller, the Anarchy Triple Crown champion, that Jeff G. Bailey says is the real world champion, going to be taking on the WWE World Champion, former UFC superstar, the King of Bros, Matt Riddle, in the epic rematch from the Phoenix City Invitational earlier in the year. This is only the second time they have ever locked horns. Matt Riddle was victorious the first time. Gunnar Miller is on a tear, unlike anybody in recent wrestling history, with defenses up at Nova Pro in Virginia, Black Label Pro in Indiana, Southern Underground Pro in Nashville. He has taken the Anarchy Championship to heights no champion has ever done, and has done his best to live up to that moniker he gave himself as the real world champion, what he and Q Bailey came up with. So that alone worth the ticket price. And stay tuned to the social media for official ticket announcements. But what I'm being told is that it will be $15 a night, but there will be a combo ticket sold at a greatly reduced price to come to both nights. So that's probably going to be your best value, is to get that combo ticket. And you're going to see a great 2 nights of action. You're going to see the future of Anarchy in many cases, and some of the top talent now, guys like Austin Theory, who will be taking on Riddle on Friday night at the NCW event. So yeah, things are looking good down there. So it ended up kind of being a blessing in disguise for the building. But with the show being canceled, it allowed us to fine tune some things, cross some T's and dot some I's for Christmas chaos, and I'm excited.
You know, you mentioned somebody that I had finally got an opportunity to see in person. And this is something that I've said for the longest time. You can watch computer, YouTube, you can watch film, VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, all of the above. But there's some people that don't always translate that well. And even no matter how well they do translate, watching them live is a totally different bird. And I'm referring to Austin Theory. Had a chance to catch him a couple of weeks ago in Villa Rica with PWA in a fatal four-way for the PWA championship. And this kid, like I said, it's the first time I've had a chance to see him live. And this kid is the goods. He carries himself remarkably well. He is crisp. He knows what he's doing. And first off, before I say anything else, not only do I want to compliment him, but I want to compliment his trainers. Because I don't know how long Austin's been in the industry. But like I said, I'd heard his name a few times, but have never had a chance to see him in person, in ring. And the way he carried himself in that fatal four-way was just absolutely incredible. Kevin Blue, Sal Renaro, Tyson Dean, and himself at PWA it was an awesome match. And like I said, Austin Theory, that's a kid I'll sit back and say, folks, when you see his name on the marquee, catch him live. Dead serious. Right, Rev?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's one of the youngest kids to ever sign a contract in wrestling. He's already got a contract with WWN. It's not an exclusive contract, but, they basically have prime selection on him. So, when they call, he is his priority, of course. But yeah, he's a fantastic talent.
You make a reference to WNN, and a lot of the video distribution sources that are now available. You mentioned Powerbomb TV, GWN, of course, WNN, Twitch is starting to load up on more wrestling. Fight TV is loading up on more wrestling. And
Hotspot.
Yeah, I've forgotten about them. Thank you. Are we headed as an industry, in your opinion, cutting the cable and going more app-based programming on distribution agencies just like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where wrestling's found its model for sure. I mean, it's a mere wrestling is always 10 years behind everything else, right? I mean, that's not a secret.
True.
We're still rocking fanny packs and Zubaz in many cases. So, we're not exactly the most hip to the times people. And we've seen this already with television in many cases, right? You've seen a number and more popping up. It seems everybody's got their own streaming service now. So, that oversaturation is a bit of a concern, but when you're looking at like niche-based programming, things like horror and wrestling, they've done pretty good on the streaming services because they have that loyal, hardcore group of fans. And for wrestling, it has long been a struggle of, how do you get a television product out there anymore? Syndication is a dead useless thing now. It used to be the driving force behind wrestling television. Right. Well, that's not a thing anymore. Infomercials destroyed syndication. They came in and decided they would pay top dollar for these spots. There was no more bartering, negotiating. They didn't care about programming. They just cared about the dollars. So syndication is useless. And now, with television being even more fragmented and more splintered, TV, even broadcast TV, is less powerful than ever, unless you're hot or you have like a really prime time network or cable slot. If you're on at 4 a.m, even if you're on ABC, you're on at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So it's an issue that wrestling has faced. Like, how do you do television? And so the internet with smaller video clips, companies like Beyond, I think really pioneered shown that a full
Right.
internet business model could work and support a promotion, and some have succeeded and some have failed fucking miserably, because that happens a lot in wrestling too. But I think just, putting the streaming thing is the current way you can make wrestling television, because if you develop a fan base on a thing like Powerbomb TV, you're probably hitting about the same number of people you were at 2 a.m. On TV, on syndication, but they're all people that want to watch wrestling. So you're not going to get as many like casual, I was just flipping through the channels and saw the time and thought it was awesome viewers. You're not going to get those, but you are going to get more hardcore fans who are tuning in specifically to see what you do.
And I know a lot of that also has to do with the marketing that some people do on social media, because in this day and age, traditional brick and mortar, as far as advertising goes, papering towns, a lot of people don't even understand that concept anymore, of papering a place before a live event. And we've gotten so dependent on, and this is the one we talked about off air, I think too many people have gotten dependent on the laziness that has ensued from promoting on social media. You see where I'm going?
Socially, yeah, I do. And I think, it does have its place. You have to have a presence there to reach a certain part of your audience, especially the youth part, and the youth part is important. You want the young girls, you want the young boys, you want cool people. So other people will want to come be where the cool people are. I mean, from a business perspective, that's what every business wants, right?
Right.
That 18 to 35 demographic. And social media is where you're going to get them. But one thing about social media is the content is so wholly fucking disposable. How many images, flyers, posters, pictures do you scroll past every day? I'd say it numbers in the hundreds, if not the thousands.
Sometimes.
For people who actively use social media, right?
Sometimes.
So how often are those things that you see really going to stick with you? Even if it's something you thought looks cool, maybe you're jogging and skimming through Facebook. Maybe you're just skimming through Facebook because your significant other is bitching at you and you don't want to look at them, and you just want to try to pretend like you're doing something else. There's a million reasons that you might see something on social media, but you're not going to wholly digest it. And the older the crowd gets, the more I think that's true. So I think, to really make an impact, you see a paper poster when you're going to the gas station. It's a physical item there in front of your face, and I feel there's just a more of a human connection there.
There is, and I agree wholeheartedly. But the one thing that really irks me more than anything else, and we had this discussion this past Thursday on Shooter's Gallery, where people will spend more time promoting their own personal drama on their so-called professional or mashup page. Because you got some people, it's like, I have my personal page, I have my professional page. I have Fast Eddie Layne on Facebook, I have Eddie Layne, my last name, on Facebook. Well, Eddie Layne, my last name, is my personal page. Some people cross over onto that one. But everybody else, I'm sorry, I don't know you. Please, facebook.com/Fast Eddie Layne. And I do the majority of my shameless promoting on the Fast Eddie Layne page. But the fun part that I've come to realize is that there are people out there, and I'm not going to point fingers all across the state of Alabama, in particular my home state, where someone will make a post about their upcoming show at 2 o'clock in the morning 4 days before, same time zone, rather than wait until 8 a.m. in the morning where they know more people are going to see it. That way they can just sit back and, I put the poster out. When? Well, it went 2 in the morning. Okay, how many people do you think saw it? Oh, no, I'm not staying on social media all night. And if I offend anybody with the dialect that I'm using on that one, I've been using that voice for years. I ain't changing now. But it's not the fact that you do it. It's the fact of when you do it. Because the fun part that I tell everybody There's 3 prime windows, actually 4, depending on the week. 1, put your flyer out during Raw. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, MySpace, don't care. People are still on MySpace, and more people than you think, believe it or not. Tuesday during SmackDown. Thursday during Impact. And don't laugh, when there's a UFC live event on, you better have that poster out there for people to see on social media during a UFC event. Because you get a ton of crossover traffic. But a lot of people just don't let that sink in their head. That it's like, it's not the fact of when you do it, but it's how and when, not the fact that you do it. It's the fact of how and when you do it that's going to make the biggest impact. You see where I'm going with that one, right, Rev?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's important. You got to try to time things. I don't think a lot of people take that into account. So I think, it's a nice lesson from Fast Eddie Layne here. I think, people just assume you put something on social media, it's there in perpetuity, but there's an algorithm, there's a rhyme and a reason to post things at a certain time. So just probably look into that. But I mean, oh God, I don't really want to get on a social media tirade, but the personal drama, it's just not the place for it. I don't get why you would air your personal grievances other than just a severe lack of attention, but it's a society-wide illness. I see otherwise completely sane people that do horrendously stupid things on social media on a reoccurring basis. Just don't get it. Nothing wrong with having an honest dialogue. Nothing wrong with putting some of your real feelings out there, but for God's sakes, especially if you're in the wrestling business, you do kind of have an image to protect. I know that's really not a thing anymore either. You just go put it all out there, and it is what it is. But, there was a time when a booker would carefully craft every single thing an audience saw about you as a talent as to gain maximum control over your ability to draw money in a good way. That makes you a star. That protects you. It hides your weaknesses. It hides your flaws. It only shines the light on your strengths, and you're a bigger star because of it. Social media has set that on fire and wiped its ass with it.
Yeah. Haven't heard that phrase. Thank you.
I mean, they need to be looking for some Tux medicated pads after that. It's that bad.
Pop.
There's just no more crafting an image,
Well, you're absolutely right, and it's a very delicate thing because, it's funny because on one there was an episode of To Be Determined, and we had Tommy Too Much on. I know you know him very well. And Tommy made the comment at one point in time, he will never have, he will probably never have a t-shirt made. And I know Tommy to be one of the best pure heels in this business who just know this man could draw heat with invisible ink and make it visible. And he made the statement, well, you'll probably never see a Tommy Too Much t-shirt. And I'm sitting back going, why in 2016, which of course when the interview took place, why in 2016 when everybody's got a damn t-shirt, why do you not want a Tommy Too Much t-shirt? He says, because I never want to see my name across the I'm not going to say the exact words. Let's just say the over-engorged breast of some ugly chick. His exact word.
Just go right to the stick.
Pretty much. He went straight for the jugular on that one, and I there's some words I can't say because I just don't like the way they sound rolling off my tongue. But the exact words were, "You'll never see my name across some fat bitch's titties." Ugly in there too. Yeah, I know. Thud. That was the sound of me falling on the floor out of my chair when he said that too.
Hey, I for what it's worth, you get a little respect from me for trying to be a heel. If you do it well or if you do it poorly, and a lot of guys make some really bad getting heat is making people mad enough to want to see you get your ass whipped, which means you have to be good enough to make them suspend their disbelief in the first place, and they're not going to suspend their disbelief in their wrestling's bullshit. So the best you can hope to do is suck them into your performance and make them forget for a minute, you know? And so it's like, if you're not good enough at that, then you can't even, the heat's meaningless, because you're just going to offend people, and they're going to say, oh, because the fucking heat's going to go on the promotion now, because all the heat goes on the promotion. It never goes on the wrestler, because everybody's wise, you know? And so then you get a mob on social media calling for the promotion to be boycotted unless they do something about this offensive thing that happened. It's like, fuck, well, what do you do?
Well, that's one thing that I found to be a little bit different, because the feud that he had, and I'll just use that term because I don't feel like using the word program or storyline. The feud that he had with AJ Steele over in PWA, they just let some ish rip. And I am really surprised that more people didn't get quote unquote offended by it, but they were just all over that. They wanted to see AJ Steele put his foot so far up.
Yeah, you got to know your audience too, man.
Yeah.
A lot of these Southern crowds love that shit. You know, some other crowds might not so much. You know, a lot of the viewing audience on Powerbomb TV might not be a huge fan of stuff like that. But, you know, there's a salt of the earth people that really dig that shit. And it is what it is. You can like it or not.
Yeah. Understand. I mean, because we've talked about people on this show like Kevin Blue, who has been a standout for quite a while. And it, you know, I've seen him in the traditional fan favorite role. I've seen him in the in the heel role. And this is a kid who adapts very well. And he's quickly becoming, over the last couple of years, one of my favorite people in this business, because he plays it to the hilt either way. He can either be the quiet, unassuming fan favorite, or he can be the in-your-face rule breaker that, you know, which is almost a throwback. But in this day and age, it's a beautiful thing when somebody can get it and get it right.
Oh yeah, we've done really good business with him. He's been, I hate to say it because he's a pain in my ass sometimes, but yeah, he's come a long way, and really his potential is limitless as far as where he could go at this point. He's gotten himself in physically a lot better shape, and just learning the business in a whole lot of different aspects. And, you know, barring anything horrific, he should be a very positive contributor to the sport for many years to come.
Keep him healthy. Hell yeah.
Yeah, man. That's another thing. You fucking guys think that that my ass just raises hell at you for taking stupid risks because I'm an old fart who's out of touch, blah, 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 blah. Well, it's not true. A good friend of mine, I'm not going to put his business out here, but a good friend of mine got hurt a couple weeks ago in a match. And, you know, luckily he's a guy that's kind of got his shit together. He's got some short-term disability. You know, he's got some safety nets, so he's not going to be in too rough a shape. Doesn't look like he's going to lose his job. You know, all of that's good. But, you know, if wrestling is paying your bills and you get hurt, then you can no longer wrestle until you heal. Therefore, you cannot pay your bills.
Right.
If you get hurt in a wrestling match and you have a legit job outside of wrestling, like 99% of us do, and you can't do that job, you know, maybe you're not so lucky. Maybe your employer doesn't have insurance to cover you. Maybe you don't even have health insurance. Your whole fucking life could be wrecked over a wrestling injury.
Right.
So I'm not saying don't take the sport seriously. You should definitely take the sport seriously. But as independent guys, both looking at your longevity in your career and how long you want to fucking do this, and also you'll realize that you have to manage, because most of you have wives and kids and other people that depend on you, and you do this as your personal enjoyment, your dream that you're chasing, while still doing that juggling act that so many of us do. A severe injury can fuck all of that up for you. So just keep that in mind when you're taking crazy risks.
Last night here on this station, I brought up what I consider to be a valid point. Think of the major, quote unquote, world champions that we have had in this industry over the last 30 years. Now, I realize that a lot of people under the age of 21 listen to this show. I understand that people under the age of 25 listen to this show. Thank you. On behalf of the good Rev, Andrew and Tank, thank you. But let's go ahead and put everything out there. I have a ton of respect for people like Ricochet, Will Ospreay, a lot of the guys that you'll see on Lucha Underground or AAA, CMLL, New Japan, all of the above. But here's something I want everybody to consider in and out of this business. Drink. I'll get you the drinking game rules in a few minutes. Think about your major long-form champions that have been in this industry over the last 30. Please tell me one that went above and beyond to take unnecessary risks inside of a ring for the sake of showing off or getting a pop. None.
Well, very few, if any.
I mean, Daniel Bryan maybe can be put in that. Rey Mysterio, not really. Think about it. Let's go back and look at one of the most popular world champions in history, Rev. Nature Boy Ric Flair. Other than a high back body drop, depending on who was giving it to him, the press slam out of the corner, which I think, according to Jerry Lawler, Flair was like one for the century on that move. Almost over. I remember the night that he actually connected on it. And whoever gave him a gorilla press slam, like Animal Sting, whatever. Please tell me a major high-risk move that Ric Flair did.
Oh, well, I mean, he didn't, That's the deal. So what I'm saying is to that same token, it's your body. It's your decision to make those risks. You feel like you got to do it, who am I to stop you? You have free will to do whatever you want to do. And you know what? I don't blame anybody for doing whatever they feel like they have to do to make it in this cutthroat, crazy business. Don't blame them at all. But just trying to give some advice to hopefully prolong your career. That's all. Because I care about you here on the Midnight Black Mass.
Amen. There was one that I wanted to ask you about, and it is the advent and return for Matthew Hardy of what is now being called Woken, but of course over in Impact and in other places it was Broken. Based on what you saw and heard before the move to WWE, do you think that Vince McMahon and the WWE creative will give Matt Hardy the latitude necessary to pull this off properly?
That's a good question. I've heard Vince is a fan, which is a good thing for Matt. I hope so. I think a lot of that's going to depend on how the people respond to it. They respond to dollars in terms of the WWE brass. So if people are buying merchandise, if they are responding to it live, and it entertains Vince, then I think he's golden. If any of those three things go wrong, then he could be fighting an uphill battle.
Agreed. I was a huge fan of the Broken gimmick, especially the compound battles. Yes. Pro wrestling with Roman candles. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, and because there was a little bit of interchange between, or dialogue between Matt and Bray Wyatt when Matt was still in Impact. And I'm almost wondering, granted the fact you've got the other two major players in the Wyatt family doing the Bludgeon Brothers bit over on the Blue brand, would they actually try to put something together? I'd like to see them wait till Rumble, but I know that's a long way away, month and 3 quarters. But I honestly think that if they were to just wait until Rumble to genuinely have a face-to-face between Matt and Bray, that would be one of those quote-unquote moments you hear me talk about every once in a while. Rev?
Yeah, who knows? They sometimes they don't seem to have a particularly long shelf life with angles anymore. It's like throw it out there, if it doesn't get over immediately, punt. So I don't know if they've got long-term plans with this, but they might. With Mania season coming up and everything, if there's going to be a long-term plan for things, that's generally when it happens. So, you could see it. It's certainly possible, and I hope it gets over. Well, my opinion on the whole broken thing, at first I was like, what the fuck is this? And like many people thought it was incredibly stupid. But I gave it a chance. Everybody's like, oh man, you got to watch it. You got to give it a chance. I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And at this point, what hasn't been done in wrestling, and anything like that, I'd normally shit all over, like saying, "Oh, you're just crapping on the business, and you're just not taking it seriously, and blah blah blah." But those guys have earned the right to do whatever the fuck they want, because they're both superstars and great dudes in a business of not many, and they put their bodies through hell. So if they can do something more entertaining, with less physical harm, then that's always a good thing. And eventually it won me over, and I just thought, man, these guys are so out there and crazy and just outside the box. It's actually what TNA desperately needed at the time, to make someone talk about them, and they made the wrestling world talk to the point that they brought it over and out of the WWE.
The part that I actually appreciate is the fact that Ed Nordholm and Anthem Entertainment have pretty much dropped this whole thing from their side of the board, which made me believe that Jeff Jarrett was one of the driving forces for the lawsuit and all the other crap. So based on the information that I've been given, third party, Matt has a clear road to take over Broken as well as Woken. So if I know Vince, since he knows that Broken is Matt's bit, that's his IP, intellectual property. And Vince always wants to keep his fingers on something. That's why Ruby Riott over on the Blue brand is RIOTT. Hey, we can add a T to her name and I can go ahead and trademark that. Okay, get that into the USPTO. So therefore,
I can go ahead and trademark that name that we came up with anyway.
Yeah, I know. I mean, so they add a T to it so she can be Ruby Riott with 2 T's, the WWE trademark. Then lo and behold, he's Woken Matt Hardy. We can trade that under the WWE umbrella and make money off that and give Matt 10% or 15%.
I mean, but like I was saying, I appreciate the outside the box mentality of that whole thing. So, I hope it goes well for them. Those guys deserve to make a mint and retire happy and healthy.
I agree. I mean, for the time that they've done and the innovators that they were and still are to a great degree, you've earned, and the chant that I never get tired of hearing, but I always wonder why fans started it, is the "you deserve it" chant. I know it's easier than saying "you have earned it." The only thing I deserve sometimes is a sniper from 300 yards away. But now what I've earned is a different animal.
Yeah, I kind of hate the "you deserve it" chant. I hate a lot of chants, but at this point, at least they're making noise, so whatever. The sad state of affairs, I know, but I've resigned myself to what wrestling is, and I enjoy still participating, so there you go.
Well, there's a whole lot of fun left to be had in this industry. Sometimes we have to look for it, and I'll be honest with you. You and I had a discussion a while back when everything was going nuts for me earlier in the year, and you knew that I was heavily burned out on a lot of stuff, radio included. And you were one of the first ones to sit back and say, you handle your business and you get your house straight, and we'll be here when you get back, for which I still respect that. And it's really difficult sometimes to see the forest and the trees at the same time. And in wrestling is one of those birds where if you immerse yourself in it to the depths that we do, to the degrees that you and I do, it's easy to sit back and say, okay, give me a machete, I'm going to kill somebody now. And then, amazingly enough, sometimes the least little thing can make you sit back and go, oh, this doesn't suck. Hold up, I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, we got about 15 minutes left on the show. Just wanted to talk about some one of my favorite things of the holiday season, and an annual discussion we have here about holiday horror. You know, horror movies are my second child, basically. Like, and I almost, like, I want to work in them, but I almost want to just also remain a fan, because I was a fan of wrestling at one point too, and I still am. I'm being facetious, but it's a situation where it's like, once you get on the inside, the genie's out of the bottle. Like, you know how everything works from an intimate, inner working, deep level, and you've done it. And so that magic is kind of gone. And it's not gone. You get it in different ways, right? But as far as a fan, just watching wrestling, it's really hard to recapture that. Horror movies, I still just have a childlike glee when I watch one that is that connects with me. And, you know, I had a giant list that I went through during Halloween. And now that the holidays are coming near, I've busted out the list of holiday horror. And I find it a fascinating look just into the psyche of humanity, because I feel like there's always kind of been this dark side to Christmas and the holidays. I mean, when you go back to Dickens, right?
Yeah.
With the ghosts tormenting Ebenezer Scrooge, horror has kind of always been an element of Christmas. And so I feel like some of those movies kind of fly under the radar. Of course, you have the mainstream stuff, like Gremlins, you know, one of the best Christmas movies ever, and also has a large horror component to it. But, you know, the movie is wholly a Christmas movie, from the opening stanza of Christmas Baby, Please Come Home by Darlene Love at the beginning of the movie, all the way through the final fight scene with Gizmo and the Gremlins in the shopping mall. So that always gets an annual viewing. Already watched that. Silent Night, Deadly Night, always a classic. And there's a bunch of sequels, including a crazy, I think it's like part 5, and it came out in the 90s. And it stars Mickey Rooney as this evil toy maker who is murdering people. So I've not seen that one yet. I've only read about it, but I've got to get up to that one. And then there's the super campy Christmas horror movies like Santa's Sleigh with Bill Goldberg, which the opening scene where he like murders Fran Drescher and this whole room of celebrity cameos is worth watching the movie alone. It is so fucking silly and ridiculously gory, like way more gory than you would expect, starring a guy as wholesome as Goldberg. But it's actually worth a watch. You know, it's terrible, but in all the best way. Also, Jack Frost, not the Michael Keaton movie, but What About the Killer Snowman?
Yeah.
Also just a horribly cheesy, but also awesome in the same way. You know, there's a line between good and bad sometimes, and some of those really schlocky horror movies kind of flirt with it, but getting into the so bad it's good territory, and Jack Frost certainly is one of those. I recommend that. Another annual viewing I recommend. First of all, Eddie, have you seen any of these movies that I'm talking about?
A couple of them, and one that always sticks out to me, and we've been going down the list so fast, one of the ones that I've always stuck with is Black Christmas.
Oh, yes, I already watched that one. The original, there's two versions of that. And the remake
1970s.
is pretty good. The 70s version is my preferred version as well. But, as far as remakes go, the remake of that one is not too bad. But the original version with Margot Kidder and Olivia Hussey of Romeo and Juliet fame is a hell of a flick. Canada had a really great run of horror movies in the late 70s and early 80s, and Black Christmas is totally up there. Definitely worth the watch. It's currently on Amazon Prime, I believe. If not, it's on Shudder, I'm aware of, which is a great streaming service, like $5 a month. It's all the horror you can stick a stick at. So Black Christmas is great. Definitely glad you mentioned that. A movie that came out a few years ago, and upon first viewing, I didn't really care much for it because I think it was just not what I was expecting, right? The trailers really pushed it as a more serious, scary movie, and that was Krampus, directed by Michael Dougherty of Trick or Treat fame. It was his second attempt into the holiday horror genre, and it had a lot more like wacky comedic elements to it than I expected, and so I kind of shit on it initially. But we went to Halloween Horror Nights a couple of years ago, and it was one of the featured houses. So we went through it, and it was a lot of fun, and kind of got a little more closer look at the story and kind of what they were going for, and seeing the sets and everything, and just the atmosphere that they created kind of gave me a new appreciation for what they were trying to pull off. So I went back and watched it again. And the second time, I fell in love with it, and just more appreciating it for what it was as for what I was expecting. And it's become an annual Christmas viewing. You really have to give Krampus a watch, and don't go in expecting to be terrified. Just go in expecting a fucked up, it's kind of a parallel to A Christmas Carol. There's certainly even at the beginning of the movie, they're watching the old. Not C. Thomas Howell, who's the actor that I'm thinking of in the old black and white Christmas Carol.
Oh, Lord. My brain just went blank.
The reason I said that is he's like an initial, a name, and then a last name, like that same type of
George,
name.
Like George C. Scott. Yeah, like George C. Scott.
Yes, I think that's actually what it was.
It is.
Yeah, I think it is. But so that they show that at the beginning of the movie, and then I'm not going to spoil the ending, but there's parallels all through to A Christmas Carol, but it's like a modern take, and it introduces the Krampus into mythology, and it's maybe not what you expect, but it's well worth a fucking watch. Adam Scott is great in it. I can't ever think of his fucking name, but he's the guy that played Todd Packer in The Office. Balding dude, just really blustery. God, his name's on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of it. But
I remember.
Anyway, he played.
I remembered you talking about this one last year because we had this discussion. And I remember, I believe some of the co-star, two girls in particular, Toni Collette and Allison Tolman, were in this one.
I believe, yeah.
And
so, have you seen it yet?
I saw it in passing. I managed to get a hold of a copy of it, but because of my schedule, I wasn't able to watch it, and I had to give it back to a friend of mine before he threatened to kill me.
Well, I believe it is on HBO currently, and maybe on a couple of other streaming services. So check it out this Christmas if you get a chance.
That is one that, because I've actually, now, here's the thing. Was there a sequel to it, or is it just one?
No, there's a fake sequel to it that a shitty, knockoff company put out that's not at all related to it and is a terrible piece of shit. But
yeah, because I think the sequel, or the one you're talking about, was Krampus Unleashed, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Right. because I did some looking around, and it's like I'm sitting back going, because when you mentioned the coaster, I'm trying to find it, and I decided to go and try to pull it up, and lo and behold, I'm seeing on Yahoo search Krampus Unleashed, Krampus, The Devil Returns, Krampus, or what was the other, the Christmas Devil. So it's like, wait a minute, hold on. That's why I wanted to ask you real quick.
Yeah, there were a bunch of really bad, indie knockoffs. And indie horror is thriving right now, so that is not an indictment. Just talked about some movies I watched recently. Mayhem, must-see film with Samara Weaving, and I
believe the name you're looking. The name you may be looking for is MJ Anthony.
Maybe. I don't know.
Release date 2015, 12/04. The synopsis: when his dysfunctional family clashes over the holidays, young Max, played by MJ Anthony, is disillusioned and turns his back on Christmas.
No. Yeah, that's the kid. I'm talking about the uncle. He basically plays like the Randy Quaid role in their family.
David Kushner?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the guy. He's a really funny guy, and his character in this is really like obnoxious and overbearing, and it's totally worth a watch. It has a lot of heart. Not super gory like most of the kills are off screen, though it does have some kind of disturbing imagery at times. It definitely deserves more love than it got.
Excuse me, hiccups. Yeah, I'm actually cheating because I'm actually going to go ahead and buy it and download it. That way I can have my copy.
Well, check that out. Well, while you're buying and downloading Christmas movies, I'm going to recommend a double feature, because there's a new one that just came out this year that joins the lexicon of great horror Christmas movies. And we're going to leave the show with this recommendation here as we're running out the clock here in the next few minutes. But movie called Better Watch Out. I can't recall any of the actors or actresses or even the director's name at the moment, even though I've listened to a couple of podcast interviews with him. And I can't even say too much about the plot, so I'm doing a great job of telling you on this movie, I know, but trust me, it's one of the most unpredictable, like, roller coaster rides of a movie, and it falls somewhere between, like, the horror, suspense, and thriller category. And there's some really funny shit in it too, but it's all really dark humor. It's not like Krampus has a couple of slapsticky things in it. This has no slapstick. The premise is there's a 12, 13-year-old boy and his like 18-year-old babysitter. His parents go out of town for the night, and she's there with him. She's getting ready to move out of town, so it's kind of like she's been babysitting for years. They have a great bond, and they're going to have one last night together and hang out. Of course, he's got like this super deep crush on her, and then they run into some home invasion shenanigans, and that's really all I can say. But it's one of the trailers called it like Home Alone if it was a horror movie. But I can't do it justice other than to say you have to see this movie. If it is not the runaway hit of the Christmas season for horror, I will be totally shocked. It just came out on VOD last week. It is also on the Shudder streaming service. Better Watch Out is the title of the movie. Go right now and rent you a copy of that or buy you a copy of it.
Virginia Madsen, Patrick Warburton, Decray Montgomery. God, I can't pronounce Olivia's last name, and Levi Miller are the primary actors credited for the movie. I decided to look it up.
Yes, and Virginia Madsen and Patrick Warburton are the parents. And they're really great. They're not in it a ton, like basically at the beginning and at the end, but they really knocked it out of the park.
I will check that one out.
Yeah, let me know what you think. And fans, you can let me know what you think as well. On Twitter at Dragons Rejects. That's the best way to get me. I'm the most responsive on Twitter. Facebook, like I have to sit down in blocks and do Facebook because of wrestling, and that's where most guys communicate with me regarding booking stuff. And it's got a pile of guys trying to get booked and this, that, and the other. And I try to avoid Facebook like the plague. So follow me on Twitter. That's definitely the best way to reach me. But you can go to my official Facebook page, and I will respond there much more quickly than I would on the personal. So that's Rev Dan the Dragon Wilson. And go to the Anarchy social media at Anarchy Landmark on Twitter, Facebook.com/Anarchy Wrestling. And don't forget Christmas Chaos coming up on December 22nd and 23rd. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Midnight Black Mass. Eddie, any final thoughts?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to go and throw out the shameless plugs for the station.
Sure.
At Beyond Ringside on Twitter, Facebook.com/Beyond Ringside Live. BeyondRingside.com, of course, is home, as well as ProWrestlingRadio.net. And folks, quick reminder, if you are, the Beyond Ringside Radio app still very much available for Amazon, Android, and BlackBerry products. If you are on Apple, just go on over to ProWrestlingRadio.net. It's safe, it's secure, and the player that's over there is Apple compatible. And of course, if you just happen to have it, look up the Beyond Ringside channel over on TuneIn Radio app, or TuneIn Radio and the TuneIn mobile app. That way, when everything is live or replayed, because just when we sign off from the live side, I have all the most recent episodes in rotation. So if you're coming in halfway through, catch up what's going on with the other shows. And Midnight Black Mass will be right back in just a little while. And of course, don't forget the Potty Humor YouTube channel, as well as the Beyond Ringside YouTube channel. You can catch the Midnight Black Mass through both of those as well. For me personally, Fast Eddie Layne, LAYNE.com. That's home.
Outstanding. Well, it's been another great night. We appreciate you joining us here on the Midnight Black Mass. Keep one foot in the gutter and one fist in the gold. We're out.